We will call this evening's Town Board regular meeting to order for May 22nd. The time is 7:10 p.m. and we will start this evening with Ms. Eicher calling roll call.
Mayor Christy Melendez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Miles Baker. Christian Morgan.
Here.
Ken Bennett.
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer.
Here.
Brendan Boudreau.
Here.
Ivan Adams.
Here.
Mr. Morgan, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our third item this evening is review of the agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration of the board. Are there any additional items? If not, I would seek a motion.
I move to approve tonight's agenda as posted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mr. Adams. Approving the agenda as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And our agenda is approved as presented. Our fourth item this evening is a proclamation. A proclamation first for Mental Health Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall physical, health, and emotional well-being. And whereas, with early and effective treatment, individuals with mental illness, or substance use disorders can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas, Weld County lost 48 lives to suicide in 2016, and many individuals and families are affected by mental illness and substance use disorder issues. And whereas access to local community-based prevention, intervention, and treatment services are much less likely to require more expensive alternatives of hospitalization or incarceration. And whereas integrated physical and behavioral healthcare has been successful in Weld through collaboration between North Range Behavioral Health and Community Health Centers. And whereas, as of December 2014, without regard for ability to pay, our citizens have access to 24/7 crisis services for mental health and addiction crisis in Weld and throughout the state. Whereas, North Range Behavioral Health appreciates our collaboration with the community of Windsor and is happy to announce the opening of our Windsor office in early 2018. And whereas North Range Behavioral Health observes nationally recognized Mental Health Month every May to raise awareness about mental health and addictive disorders and the importance of prevention and mental wellness. Now therefore, on behalf of the town of Windsor, I, Christy Melendez, Mayor of the town of Windsor, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2017 as Mental Health Month in the town of Windsor, Colorado, dated this 22nd day of May 2017. Do we have somebody present? Would you like to come forward? Go ahead and recognize yourself.
Thank you. I'm Joanna Sinwell, and I am the Business Development Director at North Range Behavioral Health. And we just closed on the office in West Ash, and we'll be opening in maybe January or February of next year, and we're very excited about that.
Our next item this evening is another proclamation for National Public Works Week. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets, and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now therefore, on behalf of the town of Windsor, I, Christy Melendez, Mayor of the town of Windsor, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through May 27th, 2017 as National Public Works Week in the town of Windsor. And I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contribution which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and the quality of life, dated this 22nd day of May 2017. And we do have our Public Works Department head present this evening, so if you'd like to come forward. And I know after being on the board almost 8 years, they do Terry and his team and staff do a tremendous job for our citizens and for our community. And so I would suggest we give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's a privilege to work for the town of Windsor and be a part of Public Works. So thank you for the proclamation.
Okay.
Thank you, Terry.
Our next item on the agenda this evening, item 6, is our board liaison reports. Our first report would be from Town Board Member Morgan, Water and Sewer Board, Clearview Library Board.
So no report from Water and Sewer, and the Library Board will be meeting this Thursday, but I will have to forward written notes of that.
Okay. Town Board Member Bennett, Planning Commission and Windsor Housing Authority.
The Planning Commission and the Housing Authority both met last week, but I was out of town, so I cannot give an update.
Okay. Town Board Member Rennemeyer, Historic Preservation Commission and Great Western Trail Authority.
No update on either board.
Okay. Town Board Member Boudreau, Chamber of Commerce.
No update at this time.
Town Board Member Adams, Tree Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor Board.
About the same, but the tree board meets tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and the Poudre River Trail Board meets the first Thursday of the month. So it'll be first Thursday of
Okay.
June.
And I have Downtown Development Authority and North Front Range MPO, and they have not met since the last time I reported out, so I have nothing to report on either of those as well. So we'll move on to item 7 this evening, and that is our public invited to be heard. These are for individuals wishing to participate on a non-agenda item. Do we have anybody this evening who wish to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to item B of our agenda this evening, which is the consent calendar. The consent calendar this evening consists of our minutes of the May 8th, 2017 regular meeting, the Harvest Fest outside agency funding request, the letter of resignation from Mr. Brendan Boudreau, and Resolution 27-39, a resolution approving and adopting an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Windsor and the city of Greeley to jointly obtain a broadband service feasibility study.
Madam Mayor, I have a couple questions regarding a couple items on the consent calendar. Not that I'm trying to pull them off there or anything, just have a couple questions. Regarding the Harvest Festival, we had previously brought that before and discussed it. I'm assuming is that under our new operating model when it comes to funding for, if Mr. Lucas would be able to address that?
Yeah, do you have a question? I'm sorry. Is
No,
it-
I just want to, is it,
Oh.
because it went through the committee process.
It
and-
is under our new model.
Okay.
But because they're asking for cash, as they have in previous years, we're bringing it to the board.
Okay, gotcha, okay. That's all I was curious about as it was operating on the new system. Also, regarding the IGA between the town of Windsor and city of Greeley regarding the broadband service feasibility study, I didn't see any costs tied into that. Is that just because it's regarding the IGA at this point, or what?
There is a cost component in there.
Okay,
It talks about a maximum of 85,000, of which 50,000
Okay.
Greeley would pay, 35,000 maximum would be Windsor.
okay,
Kelly has informed me that the pricing is a little bit higher than that, but our maximum in is 35,000. So if they agree to a higher price, Greeley will pick up the balance.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would move that we approve the consent calendar as printed.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor then to approve the consent calendar as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no.
You can't ask any more questions.
And our
No more
consent
questions.
calendar is approved as presented. Moving on then to action items under item C for board action. Our first item this evening is ordinance number 2017-1538. An ordinance amending section 4-3-190 of the Windsor Municipal Code to align its terms with tax measures approved by the voters with respect to expansion of the Windsor Community Recreation Center. This is first reading and legislative action. Mr. McCarter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This ordinance is really a cleanup measure that we discovered was needed. Actually, Debbie Dressel was reading through the use tax code about a month ago and found some references to 3.2% as the rate for use tax when the voters approved a higher rate to finance the expansion of the rec center. So the amendment that you have before you brings those inconsistent references into alignment with what the voters approved. It's purely a cleanup matter.
Are there any questions for Mr. McCarter at all? Okay. Seeing none, I would seek a motion.
And Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance amending section 4-3-190 of the Windsor Municipal Code.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for Mr. Bennett and a second for Mr. Rennemeyer, adopting ordinance number 2017-1538. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Item number 2 is a public hearing. An ordinance amending certain portions of Chapter 17, Article 13, Part 3 of the Windsor Municipal Code with respect to the addition of single-family detached residential dwellings to the list of permitted uses within the Corridor Activity Center at the intersection of Interstate 25 and Colorado State Highway 392. I would seek a motion to open public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I have moved to open public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for Mr. Rennemeyer and a second for Mr. Boudreau to open public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Okay, and our public hearing is now open. Mr. McCarter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a legislative public hearing required under state law so that we can integrate the terms of our development agreement, our intergovernmental agreement with the city of Fort Collins on a specific point that has been the subject of much conversation over the last couple of years. Specifically, what we have done is negotiated an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement that allows a limited amount of single-family detached residential use in the Corridor Activity Center and also that it's a limited amount in terms of numbers, but also a limited amount in terms of acreage. That amendment to the IGA was presented to the city of Fort Collins. They have signed it. You have ratified the mayor's signature. So now we have a mutually binding agreement with the city of Fort Collins. The statute goes on to say that after notice and hearing, a mutually binding and enforceable comprehensive development plan may be adopted by the town board. So this is the part where we make it enforceable. We are incorporating the terms of the IGA as amended into the Windsor Municipal Code. So the ordinance before you adds a new definition, but it also actually makes a substantive change to the code by adding a section that incorporates the number and location for single-family detached residential into the code, the municipal code. So it's a legislative step that buttons down the terms of the agreement we struck with the city of Fort Collins. Notice was issued by the planning department, and representatives of Mr. Muth are present tonight if you want to talk with them. But in terms of the record, what you need to know is that notice was issued. This is a legislative hearing, and the purpose of the legislative hearing is to enable you to take action on the next agenda item.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. McCarter? Mr. Morgan?
I do. So the maximum number that I'm reading, this is 45 acres of land and no more than 116 individual units.
Correct.
So that's the maximum for the CAC in its totality.
That's on the Windsor side, that is correct.
So once that threshold has been met, presumably one landowner could take all of that capacity for single-family residence.
That's what's intended, because the 45 acres is identified on a map to the agreement, and it's focused on a single owner's property.
So is there any possibility that a different landowner then could come and make the same request, that the CAC be amended so that they could also share in this new definition of what we're going to be doing out there or allowing?
There is certainly a possibility that someone else could say they want to have residential, single-family detached residential use on their property. Just as we did in this case, it took over 2 years to sort that out. Mr. Muth had to make his case not only to us, but to the city of Fort Collins. That took him the better part of the last year. So yes, there is a possibility of it. How likely it is to come to pass, I can't tell you.
So the process then would be the same for anybody else that wanted to potentially participate in that. There would be the same exact set of hearings, the same exact set of requests, or substantially the same. So really, we're not establishing any kind of streamlined approach for the next person to kind of come and make the same request, is really what I'm getting at.
It certainly is not a streamlined approach when you look at how long this has taken. And, you know, bear in mind that if either the town board or the city of Fort Collins wants to shut that idea down early on, each municipality has the right to say, we won't entertain it. And that's the end of the line.
And then one last question. If approved, I mean, are they then required to produce that amount of single-family residence, or does this just give them the option to do that?
It permits it, and if they follow through with certain land use applications, they would then be entitled to do it, but then it depends on the market after that, Mr. Morgan.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any additional questions? I didn't notice any public comment in the packet. Was there any public comment to date concerning this?
Like neighborhood meetings and that kind of thing? No, that hasn't taken place.
Okay.
Sorry, I got one more question.
Go ahead.
Is there any additional consideration that would need to take place in terms of the amount of traffic that may be generated, additional traffic generated because additional residential would be arriving there?
The conversation over the last year to 6 months has focused on a couple of things, one of which is traffic flow. And the street layout, particularly the intersection onto Highway 392. So that has been discussed, and I think given the traffic engineering that's been done, we have a pretty good handle on what that might look like.
So modifying the CAC doesn't necessarily trigger a different kind of traffic impact study or traffic routing or traffic requirement. It just namely says you're able to do that if you can meet that. I guess.
Do you want me to try and answer a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, it was one of the components. There was the economic feasibility, traffic, and then also infrastructure capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That was evaluated as part of all this, and the applicant, or the landowner, had to prove all those out, including the traffic ability to move traffic in and out of the site. So they have proposed some modifications to do that, which should be better than originally planned, and also was approved by Fort Collins. So they took a look at also their traffic component.
But it's independent of, so until we see kind of a site plan for what would actually take place.
They have generated a general site plan for review that includes that for purposes of discussion. So we did have a template that we were looking at that would give us ability to give a general approval saying this would work.
Who is it that kind of?
The landowner.
The landlord said this
Yes.
would work?
What's that?
I mean, who on staff here would review that and say that that actually is?
Our engineer and Fort Collins engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience to address the public hearing this evening? Okay. Seeing none, I would seek a motion then to close public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move to close public hearing.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mr. Bennett to close public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And public hearing is now closed. So moving on to item 3 is ordinance number 2017-1539, an ordinance amending certain portions of Chapter 17, Article 13, Part 3 of the Windsor Municipal Code with respect to the addition of single-family detached residential dwellings to the list of permitted uses within the Corridor Activity Center at the intersection of Interstate 25 and Colorado State Highway 392. This is first reading and a legislative action. Mr. McCarter, anything further?
I have nothing further to add for the record other than a recommendation that you approve this on first reading.
Okay. Any additional questions from any board members? Okay. Seeing none, then I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2017-1539.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mr. Adams approving ordinance number 2017-1539. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4 is our April financial report. Mr. Arnold.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor and Town Board, you get the team off the bench tonight. Our finance department, actually, the Governmental Finance Officers Association National Conference is in Denver this week. So if you're trying to find somebody in the finance department, I think there's 1 or 2 bodies, but all the rest are down attending a national conference for the first time. Many of them have not been able to attend, so the location is ideal for them to attend, including our finance director, Dean Moyer. So I'm pitching in for him to review the financial report. I hope you've had a chance to review it. I would consider this month probably our first kind of real month of no kind of high-end reports from the year before that month previously, or no late filings that kind of skewed these monthly reports in the past. So we haven't had a good look at kind of what I would call a normal month in sales tax collections. And I think the good news is that this is a normal month, and we're actually 6%, over 6% above last year's collection for same month. So April 16 to April 17 comparatively, we're 6% over sales tax. So it's been hard for me to assess, I think it's been hard for you to assess how we're doing. I think that if that holds, I think we're doing okay economically. As you know, building permits continue to increase. And I'll get into more of that as we go along. So just to remind you, on page 2 of the report, our benchmark is 33% of budget. So that's 4 months into this. We want collections. And you can see sales tax is 38% over budget. Construction use tax is 41% over budget. And property tax is 37% of budget right now. So we're about 38% compared to 33% of where we want to be on target. What's interesting, even though you see that building permits, we talk about building permits being very similar to where we were last year. If you look on that construction use tax line, or that column, change from prior year, though, we're down 12%. So we actually have a few less building permits compared to last year. So we're down in the revenue from year to year, but how we budget, if you remember, we do 3-year trends. So our budget is a little bit better number-wise, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we're doing okay compared to the budget, but we're actually down compared to last year in our use tax. I just want to kind of go down a little bit to page 3 again and reiterate. Let me talk about building permits for a second. I don't know if you saw this weekend's article, and I think it was in Colorado, and then it was in the Windsor Beacon, is that right? Or was it the Windsor Now? Can't remember which one. I read a story about the state of the region on building permits. What I thought I took from that was most interesting was what I would consider one of the most respected realtors in the region, Mr. Kendall from the group, identifying Windsor as the place to live. I mean, and he said that in quotes. He said that if Windsor is no longer a second choice in the region, it's a first choice to live. I kind of cut that out for my scrapbook for 2017. And I thought that was an interesting context of where we are in building permits, and maybe a good reason why we are seeing the interest continuing to be in Windsor and locate here. Not only for our cost of housing, and that was the other description in that article talking about that we are getting what I would consider maybe a better mix of houses, a better kind of range. But we still, as a result, are still kind of at the high end of cost of housing, but it's allowing more to be accessing Windsor right now because of the number of permits in the housing stock that we have, comparatively to the past years up to the last 2 or so. Sales tax is healthy again. I want to reiterate that I think that a 6% increase from year to year is a strong collection. And as a result, we are collecting at our rate that we need to make our CRC fund and bonds whole. Sales tax revenue generated by geocode. Sometime I think it'd be good for us to spend some time just on that and learn a little bit more about that. That's always an interesting chart to me, to continue to watch where the trends are there. DDA continues to be strong and is growing. And then obviously King Soopers is still very strong and is our primary revenue generator.
Can I have you back up a quick
Yep.
second?
Mm-hmm.
The single-family permits.
Yes.
Do we, even though we're on trend, maybe slightly down, from where we see May headed here, but do we see that could spike later in the year with some of the developments coming online later this year, that we could have a year at or bigger than last year with Rain Dance and some of them coming on, starting to.
I think it's going to be very comparable. I think we're going to be really close. I don't know if we'll exceed last year. I mean, it's anybody's guess, but I think when you look at what's coming online, and your statement's right, if the housing market stays where it is, we should be in good shape as far as those numbers. I mean, shape being, if you define that,
Right.
good. But that number is probably attainable for at least the next 3 years, I think, based upon the lots coming on board, subdivisions. Expenses, I'm going down to page 5. Appear to be in alignment. We're staying in alignment on our expenses. Everything is at or below that 28% operating, where we should be. Is it 33% also? Yes, 33 we should be, and we're at 28%. And then obviously, if you ever have any questions on page 6, how we're doing on our divisions, let us know, but I didn't see anything in there out of ordinary in our departments. And in our capital fund, continues to plug along. The Public Works building is going well. I think everything is in alignment there. We have an interesting timeline with weather on the farmer's market, but it seems like we're getting closer to that, and we're going to be really up against the date promise, but I think we can make it as long as we don't get 6-inch snowstorms. Some of those, so they won't be building any basements for a while until they all get dried. But overall, I think, how is New Liberty scheduled, Dennis? Are we?
If everything goes well, we should be open by the end of the week.
New Liberty open by the end of the week, if all goes well. So that's good news, and we will publicize that. I don't think I have any other highlights.
Can I ask Mr. Wagner a question about New Liberty real quick?
Yes?
The white lines, the right side of the line, I just didn't figure with the curb to curb spacing that we would even need lines on there. I was just kind of shocked to see, because it, they put the white line of 2-3 feet off of the curb. It just, I don't know, it just seemed like it's making it really tight on the street. That's all. I'm sorry I'm asking such a detailed question about.
It's actually 4 feet off of the curb.
4 feet.
Yeah. And that is the approved plan that came in with the Rain Dance master plan, is to have a 4-foot bike lane.
Oh,
So that is the bike lane, and of course we have the separated 10-foot bike trail
right.
also for
Okay.
those people that don't want to ride on the street.
Okay. I just know what it was like to drive when there wasn't that final layer of asphalt. It was already dicey just trying to stay between the curbs so you didn't rim your car.
Tends to slow people down, I hope.
Was it? Okay, sorry.
I think it's going to be really interesting street.
So slow down, Paul.
Hey, easy.
Well, you'll see over the years how it's going to go. I mean, it's going to be pretty free flowing right now. But as it gets built in, it'll be kind of interesting to see how that street works and functions as it is there. So, any questions for the finance report?
Mr. Arnold,
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming, but I'm hoping that the finance committee that's down there at that national convention, will they be getting recognition for their award? Do you know?
Probably, I do not know that, and probably not because there's thousands of people down there. This is a national
That would be
conference.
even a better time to do
Yeah.
that, so.
I don't know if they do, I have never been to one of their conferences, so I have no idea if they do any kind of
I
recognitions.
just wondered, since
Yeah.
it was in Denver, if they were gonna get recognition.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Moving on then to communications this evening. Communications from our town attorney, Mr. McCarter.
Well, I couldn't help but notice today's May 22nd, and how different this community looks than it did 9 years ago right now, and how impressed I am at how this community tidied up, cleaned up, and then came on strong in a short 9 years. So I just want to say how proud I am of this community, and what an important day this really is in the history of the town of Windsor. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Communications from town staff. Mr. Walker?
I'd just like to invite the town board on Friday to our luncheon to celebrate National Public Works Week at the Public Works facility. It'll be from 11:30 to 2, and we'd love to have you join us if you're available.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Balstead?
No communications.
Mr. Wagner?
up a map.
I'd like to talk to you about 15th Street a little bit. So, before Dennis gets into this, Dennis, if you don't mind, I'll lead off.
Sure.
So, I've been going over this street now for several months, going back and forth to meetings, and it has struck me that this street needs some work. And so finally, as it closed, I said, well, here's our opportunity. And so I went back and asked Dennis to provide us some information on where it stands in the pavement index program. If we were to follow that, what year we would do this project, and then get some costs associated with this while it's closed. And then tonight, Dennis is going to provide that information, and I'd like to do an ask to see if you are willing to authorize tonight some further expenditures and amend our program to get this done this year. So, Dennis?
Okay. So, you see here on the map, the yellow triangle represents our property where the Public Works facility is being constructed. And then the red dashed line represents the section of County Road 15 that is being widened and basically rebuilt in conjunction with the Public Works facility. So then the solid red line is up to County Road 72 up here at the north end. And that represents a distance of 3/4 of a mile. That's the section that we'd like to talk to you about this evening. The Pavement Condition Index, or PCI, which is how we grade all of our streets, you may recall, for that section of road is 55.4, which I don't know exactly the pavement people's terminology, but I think it's generally would be considered poor. Curtis Templeman, our engineer who manages our pavement management system, indicated that as of now, he has it scheduled for overlay in 2019. So only 2 years from now. In his estimate for the work, he has $125,000. What we did is went and talked to 2 contractors. One is the contractor who's doing the current work here where the red dashed line is. And then we also talked to the contractor who's doing our 2017 asphalt overlay program, which is underway right now around town. We got proposals from both of them. One is just over 162,000, and the other one is right at 143,000. And so if the board would like to proceed with this project yet this summer while that section of County Road 15 is closed, we would recommend going forward with the contractor at $143,000.
How long would it be closed?
Right now, it's planned to be closed August 1st, till August 1st.
It's closed currently right now.
It is currently closed.
Would this extend that past August 1st?
No, one of the stipulations that when we got quotes from these contractors is that the work would have to be done before it's reopened, because we don't want to pay any more traffic control. And that's the beauty of this, is the road's already closed, traffic control is being paid for, and there's no additional traffic control.
Where did the funds,
They come from the capital fund. Obviously, we don't have it in this year, so there'd be add-ons. There might be some savings at the end of the year of our capital program. We don't have that determined yet, but, and it could wait till 2019. But, you know, it's one of those that when we come in and do it in 2019, everybody's gonna say, why didn't you do it 2 years ago? We had it closed, in my opinion. And if we can get it done now, it feels like it makes some sense. And I'm sorry I'm coming to you at the last moment to do it, but it just kind of dawned on me that it'd probably be a good idea to do it now. So,
I was gonna
Yes,
ask
Mr. Boudreaux?
Madam Mayor, I would assume that if we wait until 2019, the cost of dealing with traffic control and everything would increase the cost?
That would be my expectation, yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay. Mr. Bennett?
Regarding 2019, did I hear you say that we had budgeted or anticipated 125,000?
That's correct. That's what Curtis has in his current estimate.
So the 142 or 143 is an addition of that, or is that,
No,
that's the total?
it's
That's our-
18,000 more than.
$18,000 more than it would have been, okay, than we anticipated.
Well, 125 was using today's cost.
Today's cost, in 2 years from now, be more, and,
And
right.
They
Gotcha.
may be taking advantage, I don't know.
I just want to make certain that it's not 207,000, okay.
And Mr. Arnold, I'm hearing that 125,000 is in, I mean, we could get that out of capital improvement
We have
and go-
enough in reserves to do this.
and go ahead and do it now, though.
Yes, if
and
you are
get
so,
it done.
if you are so inclined, yes.
I think there's cost efficiencies to do it now. Like you said, the road's closed, and it makes sense, and we have the dollars. So I think overall, there's a cost savings.
I got it.
Mr. Morgan?
So is the cost to replace exactly what we have now, or would we be actually adding a shoulder or anything? I mean, because it's pretty basic.
It's to replace what we have there now. It would be a 1-inch mill, so you take 1 inch of asphalt off, grind it off, and then you come back and put down 2 inches. And so it's an additional 1 inch height. And so then you put some, you add a little bit of gravel on the edge so you don't have a drop off of 1 inch, but there is no widening involved.
It would just be nice for it to match and complement the area just to the north of it, so that there is an actual shoulder there and a much more complete road.
And if we do that, then we'd want to wait.
I would say if you want to do that, you wait.
And does that make sense, Dennis? What do you think?
It currently does not meet our standards for a rural road, that classification. So, because it doesn't have shoulders to speak of.
So you're saying it does or does not need shoulder right now?
If we wanted to meet our current standards, it would need a shoulder.
So, yeah,
Oh.
so we may want to, if you want to, it's a good question, not raised by me, but if we want to wait and design it right, then we would probably wait till a year or two.
Well, just to the amount of, I'll just make my comment, just the amount of traffic on there is more and more and more. You're going from basically a kind of a nicer down to a replacement of an original style county road with absolutely no shoulders, and then back to our main city roads, which are, complete streets. So I think, we should either pony up the money to do it right the first time or delay that, just because it's, all we're really doing is making a nicer surface to drive on. We're not really improving the road capacity or in any way.
One thing that bring up is when the properties on either side of the road develop, they will need turn lanes, and at that time is when you would add shoulders too. And so if you're okay with a better asphalt surface now without shoulders and wait until this gets rebuilt with turn lanes, then that's an option too. And I think that's a pretty good option because you're talking about pretty significant rebuild here, and then when these properties develop, you're rebuilding some more. And so I think from my standpoint, I would be happy with just a better asphalt surface. It's getting pretty deteriorated.
Because that's in pretty, I was gonna say, it's in need of some kind of, I think, consideration now, sooner rather than later, some kind of fix. And I think it's gonna be more heavily trafficked when we have that reopen in the Public Works facility.
You'll certainly get a lot more traffic, of course, as development occurs
Right.
adjacent to it, and
I mean, I see Mr. Morgan's point, but maybe, I also see your point, though, maybe we need to make this immediate fix, and then as the development comes into the picture, we make into consideration the addition. Mr. Redemeyer?
Well, no, I was just gonna ask what the time frame is for that development that we're talking about. We have nothing planned right now, I mean,
No, they have it on the market. I think, well, at least the parcel to the east. Yeah, if we could predict when they could do it, that'd make the answer They're both good points. I do think that we'll probably be, you know, I don't know what your position is in 2 years, whether you want to build a full build out and then have, like Dennis said, some potential redundancy of improvements when a new developer comes online in the next X number of years. Or do you just wait out for the development to do that and make the improvement now for rideability purposes?
So let me follow up on something else that was said. The part from the railroad tracks to the entrance to the Public Works facility, that is getting shoulders right now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's full build out, right, Dennis? Full build out.
Yes.
Because that's our responsibility as a developer. So what you're gonna see is what's built out there is what would developer would be required to build if and when we got to that point.
Do we have any idea what a cost estimate would be to do full build out on that section?
And we wouldn't get it done between now and August 1st.
Well, right, but I just was curious what the, no.
I don't think we've ever looked at it that way. We've always pretty much looked at this road as a rural road and would be built to standard when the development occurred next to it.
And is the developer then responsible for that? So
Yes.
to make that,
Yeah, you know, and I think you could argue
Improvement.
that until we see development on both sides, it is in essence still a county road as far as what it's used for. There's no new accesses to it other than the existing farmhouses. County Road 15 on the west side over here is where we intend to construct our 24-inch water transmission line in possibly in 2018. You know, we have that is going to be a transmission line to bring in additional water supplies from Northwell County Water District. And so just so you know, that's in our capital improvement plan. Our plan is to build it off the side of the road, of course, so that it doesn't wind up under future widened County Road 15. But it is another project that's on the horizon.
That won't affect the land from the new Public Works facility when that transmission line goes in?
They are building the 24-inch through that property. It will end at their north property line when it's
Okay,
done. So
good.
we'll pick it up from there.
so do we need to formalize some kind of,
Well, you know,
or just, do you want direction or?
I would love to have direction, because if we wait 2 more weeks, we may miss that window.
Well, I mean, I see Mr. Morgan's point, but I think I still would advocate that while we're under construction, we have the road closed. It seems like in terms of anything related to road repair and expense, very, a reasonable cost bid that you got, and if we could be done at the same time, I think there's still some purpose, and it still will lend itself to having this improvement. So I would advocate that we move forward.
I would advocate for it to be done too right now, especially considering we don't have a timeline for the developments to go in. If we knew that those were going in the next 2 or 3 years, which we don't know and may not happen in that time frame, then I would say if it was already on the schedule for 2019, it makes sense to go ahead and do it now.
Other board members?
I agree.
Okay,
We should
Mr. Bennett?
move forward.
Well, I hear Mr. Morgan's point, but I just feel like, let's do it and get it done.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
Okay, so we will proceed, and then obviously it may be absorbed as budget savings come into the CIP, or we'll have to do a budget adjustment for this project. If you're okay, we'll go ahead and get it started and get one of these on board and include it in this project.
And it will be completed before school starts? That's,
For August 1st,
August 1st.
yes.
okay.
Yep,
okay, thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Unger? Mr. Lucas?
Just a reminder that the Chimney Park pool opens on Saturday,
Ah, great.
and so does the lake.
Okay. Ms. Van Meter? Okay. Communications from Town Manager, Mr. Arnold.
Just a reminder, Monday is Memorial Day. Is there a ceremony there?
There is.
Yes, at 10 o'clock?
They have not sent me the information, but they told me to be prepared to, I would assume it's the same as it has been
Yeah,
years previous.
Right. So I think it's a 10 o'clock start.
Mhm.
The cemetery, our mowing got held up a little bit last week with the weather, but we should have, it's all hands on deck on Wednesday, I understand, to get the cemetery up and looking like it should for Memorial Day. So looking forward to that event. Just looking at your future town board meetings. So you do not have a meeting next Monday. It's Memorial Day. June 5th, District 2 interviews will occur. And then we have June 19th is, we have a slight change. We're gonna bring back the roadway improvement plan, master plan, and also the road impact fee study update. And then also, we're gonna start bringing in some elements of the new zoning and development code and start having some discussion. And since we're talking about transportation that night, we're gonna bring in some transportation elements to that discussion. So you'll see your consultant who's working on the development and zoning code come in also that night. So we have 2 consultants visiting us, the road impact fee and the street master plan consultant, FHU, and then also the planning and zoning consultant we've hired to do our code update is also coming in that night. Which means to the 26th, we're gonna have our storm drainage master plan update with you also. All those are leading to ultimately a conversation by sometime into July or first part of August on adoption and or fee modifications for those. So try and get those buttoned up in that August period of time so that if you decide to do something, we can incorporate that in the budget. So that's why they're all kind of coming to a crescendo this summer. Let's see. Other than that, is this your last board meeting?
Yes.
It is.
On behalf of town staff, I want to thank you for your service, Mr. Morgan, and everything that you've done and brought. I just kind of recognize that snuck up on us very fast. But thank you for everything you've done and accomplished over the last 3.5 years? Well, 3.5 years.
Over 3 years. Yeah.
So, thank you very much for everything you've done on behalf of town staff.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
That's all I have.
if I'm out of order, say so, but I just want to know if I can ask this question of Mr. Arnold. At the last week's library presentation, they talked a lot about a road just east of the new library, and I'm just wondering, is it in our plans as far as the roadways? Are we going to hear about that on maybe it's the 19th or in the next meeting? But are we looking at, so that they won't have to do a what they call right turn there? They'll have a way to get in and out of that library. And we don't have to answer it now, but I just want to know if, because I was concerned as I heard their presentation.
So that lot is on the plat, right, Scott? Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead. We are fully recognized how they're gonna access it, so Scott will tell you how that's gonna happen.
See, Greenspire Drive is the platted road that will access the property from Main Street. And we've given the library district several volumes of information regarding all of the things that will be necessary to make that lot developable. And one of them would be improvement of Greenspire Drive and the improvements in Main Street that would restrict the access movements. So we've given them all the information, and it has been platted. It's part of the Greenspire subdivision.
Thank you, Scott. I was going to say Windshire, and I knew it was Greenspire, all these spires. But anyway, that's good because they weren't ready to answer anything about it. So I just thought I wanted to make sure that we were bringing it up, and being ready for it, so.
Yeah, and their consultant is the same one that worked on the rec center, and staff has been working closely to get them all of the information they need.
Thank you.
Were you finished, Mr.
Yes.
Arnold? Okay. Communications from town board members.
I have two things. Go ahead, Paul.
No, really, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for the nice balloons and packages, the package that I got for my birthday the other day. And I also want to second what Kelly said about Morgan. It's been a pleasure to work with you guys. I'm going to miss you. If that's what you were going to say, I'm sorry. You can say it better anyway.
I moved to no. I wanted to say that I got to go to the CML spring outreach today, and they covered all the different pending state issues. The biggest was the construction defects legislation. Got a little bit of conversation in the room. Other than that, not a whole lot new, other than the report from all the different municipalities over there were very interesting to get to hear. It's growth is actually something that's going on in about every community in northern Colorado. Everybody's talking about Meade is getting their very first police station, and they're like excited, you know. And I told them about our Starbucks opening, you know, they were excited, and you know, Fort Collins and Level think that's funny because they already have, you know, their
17 Starbucks.
Exactly. So it was a good meeting, but Windsor was represented well. So.
Thank you. Anything else? Well, I have several items, so I'll just ask everybody to maybe kind of bear with me. So first thing is I just wanted to report, I did have coffee with the mayor on Saturday. The room was completely full and booked, and actually the place is way too small, so we'll have to find a new location because we have folks who came who actually had to leave because there was no room. But we've covered everything from childcare concerns to community separators to some oil and gas to mosquito spraying. So lots of a variety of different issues, and some new folks participated. That was followed up with attending the library's recognition of Bookmobile and the chili cook-off, which the mayor represented the town with some chili. I don't think we took any honors or winning, but I came home with a completely empty pot. And I think they probably had about 100 people in attendance, so I think it was a good day for and the weather held up, so that was good. And then that was followed by, and I did want to give some recognition to Mr. Adams, who had an 80th birthday this month, and so we want to say congratulations and to Mr. Adams. That's quite a milestone and achievement, and he had a nice reception on Saturday as well. I also, that last week, we had the first ever student film festival. So great job by Miss Van Meter and Mr. Lucas. We had 16 short films that we got to watch, and I think we saw that we have very talented youth in our communities, from middle school to high school, who did a variety of different programming on a variety of town subject matter that the town is going to be posting on their YouTube channel. Is that correct? They're all up, and I think there's some really good things. They did a great job for us and represented our community well. So and there were winners there. I don't know, I can't remember who they all are, but congratulations to those winners, but especially to our staff who put that together. That was a very nice job. Thank you very much. I think also, do we not have somebody getting married this weekend? Or is that Labor Day? Oh, okay. I knew it was around some holiday. Okay. And I was just looking at something. So I want to make sure. Okay.
Unless it's a little.
I want to make sure
I don't know.
we don't miss that.
Yeah.
When that has to happen. So.
Did you know you were getting married?
She was.
So again, I think the only other I only have two other things then. The only other thing I would say is, again, thanks to Public Works, and for those, I will not be able to attend on Friday. I have to attend a funeral in Denver, but they do a great job, and thank you again. Make sure you relay to everybody in your staff that how much, I think Public Works is the one that really is the face behind our community. You are the guys on the snow plows and in the trenches, literally at times. So thank you for everything that you do for us there. And then lastly, I would just say, because this is Mr. Morgan's last official board meeting, that it has been my pleasure working with you. You are a gentleman and a person of high caliber. You have been focused, and you have, I think, contributed greatly to the topics and to your community. And you have taken your position seriously. And I've appreciated all that you have brought to the board in the last couple of years. And to echo some of the other sentiments, you will be missed, but not a stranger, because you still reside in our community. And so we're glad, at least to date, we get to keep you as a resident. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
So that's all I have. So with that, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Adams and a second from Mr. Redemeyer for adjournment. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Eric,